When you think of the desert, you probably picture this vast, empty space. But out there, an invisible force is constantly at work. It's a sculptor, it's a builder, it's an artist with some serious power. And it's shaping the earth using nothing more than air and sand. So today, let's take a tour of this artist's gallery and explore the incredible world of desert landforms sculpted by the wind. So let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a mushroom made of solid rock? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? A giant stone mushroom standing stories high in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Well, it's not magic, but it is one of the most amazing things the desert has to show us. And this right here is our big idea for today. The wind isn't just, wind. It's an invisible artist. It carves away rock like a sculptor with a chisel, and then, get this, it uses the exact same material, all that dust and sand, to build totally new masterpieces. So, what's in this artist's toolkit? How does simple wind carve up solid stone? It really all comes down to one main technique, a process that is somehow both super simple and unbelievably powerful. That process is called abrasion. And the easiest way to picture it is like industrial sandblasting. The wind scoops up millions of tiny, sharp grains of sand and just hurls them against rock faces, day in and day out. Over thousands of years, this constant bombardment literally grinds, scours, and polishes even the toughest stone. Okay, so now that we know about the tools, let's see what they can actually create. This is where abrasion takes over and carves the landscape into some truly bizarre and beautiful masterpieces of stone. And here it is, our rock mushroom. Its technical name is a rock pedestal. Now, the secret to its shape is actually pretty simple. Wind can't lift those heavy sand particles very high off the ground. That means the sandblasting effect is way more intense near the base. So it just chews away at the softer rock down low, while the harder rock on top stays more or less intact, leaving this iconic top-heavy shape that can be up to 15 meters high. Next up in the gallery, we have Zeugen. For this one, I want you to picture a landscape of these long, table-like ridges with deep grooves in between them. This happens when the wind finds little cracks in a hard top layer of rock and starts carving out the softer rock underneath, creating this really distinct ridge and furrow pattern. Now, yardangs might look kind of similar at first glance, but the geology is completely flipped. Here, the bands of hard and soft rock are vertical, like they're standing on end. So the wind just scours out all the soft rock, leaving behind these steep, streamlined ridges of hard rock that almost look like the hulls of giant, upturned ships, all pointing in the same direction as the wind. So the crucial difference here is all about the orientation of the rock. The easiest way to think about it is this. Zeugens form from horizontal layers, like a layered cake that the wind is slicing into from the top. Yardangs, on the other hand, form from vertical bands, kind of like a loaf of pre-sliced bread, where the wind just carves out the softer slices. That one little difference in geology creates two totally unique landforms. But the wind doesn't just carve hard rock, it also scoops. This process is called deflation, and it's literally just the wind lifting and carrying away all the loose sand and dust from one area. Over centuries, this can create these massive depressions, and if it scoops deep enough to hit the water table, bam, an oasis can form, bringing life right into the middle of the desert. And just to give you a sense of scale here, the Qattara Depression in Egypt is a deflation hollow that plunges 130 meters below sea level. That is the incredible power of wind, just patiently lifting away one grain of sand after another for thousands and thousands of years. And finally, in our sculpture gallery, we have the Inselberg, which is German for island mountain, and it's the perfect name. These things are the ultimate survivors. They're these ancient, incredibly hard rock formations that used to be part of a huge plateau. Over millions of years, the wind and water just eroded away all the softer stuff around them, leaving these giants standing all alone, like islands in a sea of sand. Okay, so the wind has carved away billions of tons of rock, creating a world of sand and dust. But it doesn't just throw that debris away. No, now our artist is about to become an architect. So what happens to all that sand? Well, this is where the artist becomes an architect. The very same force that destroys also creates. And all that debris from erosion, it becomes the building blocks for the desert's most iconic structures. And of course, we are talking about dunes. These massive, shifting hills of sand are really the ultimate expression of the wind's architectural power. And they aren't just random piles of sand. They're structured, they're organized, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. We're going to focus on two of the most classic types, the beautiful crescent-shaped barchan and the absolutely immense sword-like safe dune. Barchan dunes are just so elegant, almost perfect in their shape. They're created when the wind blows pretty consistently from one direction. The sand piles up, creating a gentle slope on the side facing the wind and a steep slope on the other, with these two horns that point downwind. They look just like sandy crescent moons drifting across the desert floor. And then you have the Saif dune, which is named after the Arabic word for sword, and it is easy to see why. These are just colossal, long ridges of sand that can stretch for an astonishing 100 kilometers. They run parallel to the wind, shaped by these powerful eddies that keep building them higher and longer. But the wind's construction projects aren't just limited to the desert itself. The very finest particles, this stuff called loess, are so light they can be carried for thousands of kilometers. When this dust finally settles, it can form incredibly thick layers of super fertile soil, like in China's Huanghe River Basin, creating entirely new, lush landscapes far, far away from where they started. So all of these creations, the carvings, the constructions, it all leads to one really important point. This gallery is never finished. The desert is a world that is in constant motion. That's right, those massive dunes, they are not fixed landmarks. They are migrating. The wind is constantly blowing sand up the gentle slope, and then it just avalanches down the steep, sheltered side. This process, happening over and over, causes the entire dune to slowly but relentlessly march across the landscape. And this migration isn't just some neat fact. It's a real threat. It can bury entire roads, farms, and even villages on the edge of the desert. This has led to something called dune fixation, where people will actually plant grasses and trees. The roots of these plants act like a giant net, binding the sand together and hopefully halting the dune in its tracks. And that's really our biggest takeaway. From the slow, patient grinding of abrasion to the relentless march of a giant sand dune, the desert is a living, breathing landscape. It's a masterpiece that is never finished, constantly being reshaped by the patient, powerful, and invisible hand of the wind. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the wind can do all of